things that are worth your attention.
I'm just so grateful that you joined us.
It is a pleasure.
Welcome to Media Path. I'm Fritz Coleman.
And I am Louise Palanker.
This is going to be a great day. We have one of the funniest writers in Hollywood joining us today. He's a comedy writer, a songwriter, an actor. He's written on 25 Oscar telecasts. He's written for Bette Midler and Robin Williams and Whoopi Goldberg. Endless TV shows and movies. Not all of them compelling and awesome. Hence, the topic of today's discussion, his hysterical book called It Seemed Like a Bad Idea at the Time, The Worst TV Shows in History, and Other Things I Wrote. The great Bruce Vilanch is going to be with us in just a couple of seconds. Wheezy, what do you have?
Well, Fritz and Bruce, we hear a lot about Christian fundamentalism and Christian nationalism and Christian extremism and the organized efforts to shape our democratic pluralism into a Christian nation. But unless we were raised within a fundamentalist environment, we are not really seeing the ideological pipeline. That flag at Justice Alito's house or outside Mike Johnson's office just looks like a flag. It's the appeal to heaven flag, and if you are within this movement, you recognize it. The rest of us do not fully understand that our government has been infiltrated by those whose Christian agenda is in direct conflict with our American ideals. For example, maybe you've heard the tape of Pete Hegseth sharing his view that women should not vote or work outside the home. Women should submit to their fathers and then their husbands. Shiny Happy People Season 1 exposes the dysfunction and hypocrisy inside the Duggar family. Season 2 focuses on the youth movement that is weaponizing children into soldiers for Christ. It exposes the brutal truth about a program called Teen Mania that has pulled millions of kids into jacked-up stadium events and disturbingly torturous Navy SEAL-style endurance trials, breaking them down so that they can rebuild them in their own image as warriors and martyrs for the cause. The series traces a direct line from this mass obedience indoctrination to Project 2025, a guidebook for dismantling democratic institutions and replacing them with a Christian fascist government. Girls are trained to submit to men, boys are taught to lead with godly authority, and it is drilled into every participant that dying for your faith is the ultimate triumph. This is a cult-like, high-control religious theocracy that produces fervent political soldiers who fear no one but God. And as any great authoritarian leader understands, people who are not afraid to die are not afraid to kill. Smiley Happy People is on Prime. Can I just say, Fritz, the participants in this, the people that jump themselves out of this cult and sit down and talk in this piece are just magnificent. They're all so compelling.
I saw it. I watched it with my daughter. My daughter was talking about it in one of her psychology classes, and it was fascinating and scary. And no, it's a good recommendation.
Great piece of work.
Really
It's required viewing.
All right, I'm going to do Billy Joel, and So It Goes.
Yes.
This is a 2-part HBO documentary about one of America's greatest songwriters. It's the life and music of Billy Joel. We meet his wealthy German relatives trying to survive in pre-war Europe. It was the classic Jewish immigrant story of escape from the Nazis. It's a great look at the hereditary aspect of musical talent, too. We meet his father, who was a classic pianist. Billy's unresolved, conflicted relationship with his dad lies just below the surface throughout the whole documentary. He also had a complicated relationship with his mom, who today we would diagnose as bipolar, but she was also his biggest advocate. We watch him go through childhood all the way to fame, through struggles with alcohol, complicated friendships and loves. 3 of his 4 wives comment on how his drinking made them want to escape the marriage. His first marriage was the result of him cheating on a bandmate with a woman who ultimately became his manager, and she actually did a great job. One of the well-worn stories of rock and roll is how talent gets screwed by a manager. Billy's got a whopper of one of those experiences. We're talking $90 million. With his genius came only alcoholism, but also workaholism, all leading to failures in taking care of the family business. Billy stumbles through many episodes, but ultimately gets up and presses forward. His greatest communication skills are through his songs. And what I really appreciated about the doc was learning what a skilled classical pianist he is. Classical music actually informs most of his pop stylings. You'll hear from ex-wives, including Christy Brinkley, who speaks with empathy and respect about Billy. You'll meet his latest wife, wife, significantly younger than he is, with whom he has 2 small children. This phase of his life gave him a chance to make good on something he never had in his own life, which is being a good father. In the midst of his new fatherly duties, he was semi-retired, enjoying life on Long Island. Then one day, he got invited to perform at a Hurricane Sandy benefit at Madison Square Garden. He turns out to be the showstopper of the entire event, which in turn relit the performance fire in him and turned him into as an astonishing garden residency and the holder of the record for the longest run of sold-out shows at Madison Square Garden. It's a long documentary. It's 2 two-hour segments, but even if you're not the hugest Billy Joel fan, it's a great American story.
It's so good. It's from Tom Hanks and Gary Getzman. So it's like, and remember when Bo Donaldson was here and he told us about Artie Rip, like from Family Records?
Yes.
And he said that's the origin of the term being ripped off.
Yeah.
Because the Bo Donaldson and the Haywoods were ripped off, and then Billy Joel was epically and profoundly ripped off.
And he had to go back on the road to try to remake all the money he lost just for his family. It was awful.
But here's the thing. If it weren't for Artie Rip, Billy Joel would not have found himself in that piano bar, and he would not have written The Piano Man.
Did he mention that in the documentary?
Yeah.
I just didn't recognize the name because
No, you
I'm
got up
elderly.
and went for a sandwich.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right, our guest today is one of Hollywood's greatest comedy writers. He's written shows, he's saved shows, he's received 2 Emmy Awards, he's written on 25 Oscar broadcasts. He occupied his own square on Hollywood Squares and ultimately became the show's head writer. He's written for the greatest comics in the world, including Robin and Whoopi, my favorite being his work with the divine Miss M, Bette Midler. He's had a lot of successes, but he has not been afraid to point out his failures and has made a very entertaining book about them called It Seemed Like a Bad Idea at the Time, The Worst TV Shows in History and Other Things I Wrote. The great Bruce Vilanch.
My God, hello.
We are so honored to have you here, Mr. Bruce.
Never ripped off by Artie, actually. He picked up a check in 1971.
Did he?
Yeah, I was a journalist at the Chicago Tribune, and Billy was coming through town, and I interviewed them both together because Billy didn't. He was like a little press shy at the time. He was just new, and Artie took over. Artie was really funny. I mean, he was a very charming guy.
Yeah.
And I wasn't aware of. I haven't seen the document. I wasn't aware of that he was the giant ripoff, or that's where the term came from.
Oh my God! You mean he was the guy?
Yeah.
I didn't recognize his name. I can't believe it.
It was
We talked-
Artie Rip, and that's where
Yeah.
I didn't know that's where ripped off came from.
That's what Bo
Isn't
Donaldson
that funny?
says.
How do you like that?
Yeah.
What do
Wow.
you know?
Holy
You
cow!
never
So,
know.
I mean, you've conquered all forms of show business with your writing skills, but also
Yes.
you are known for giving the American T-shirt a higher platform in America. I mean, for instance, if you are invited to a black tie event, you don't wear the tuxedo.
No.
You have a T-shirt that has the black tie on the
I
T-shirt.
have some kind of a black tie T-shirt. The ones I like now are the ones that have painted cleavage. That like I'm not wearing a shirt underneath, and I have one that's got abs. That's quite, and another one that's just got boobs they're unbelievable.
These are rare artisan T-shirts.
They are absolutely artisan T-shirts. So I mean that's how I conquered that from having running around the Oscars, and I am the EGOT of award shows.
I love that.
I've written Emmys, Grammys, Oscars, Tonys, and a whole the American Bulimia Awards. I've written them all, and having to run around backstage and pretending you're dressed to be on camera, in a tuxedo just in case. And so you can mingle. I had to find a way to do it. But T-shirts became the go-to because I was a fat kid and I was never comfortable in real clothing. So when I moved to L.A. and discovered you could go anywhere in a T-shirt. Anywhere. So,
but you capitalized on your size.
Well, it was also the 70s. It was the era of the ironic T-shirt.
But you were
the
born and
Grateful
raised
Dead,
in Paterson, New Jersey, and your mother,
right.
having the foresight to
Yes.
see that you were going to be a very entertaining person, signed you up for the Charming Chubs.
Yes, I was a child
division
model.
of Lane Bryant.
And if you don't know about Lane Bryant, because another generation has no idea, they think that like somebody who played for the Cavaliers. Lane Bryant was a store for fat women. It was plus size. We didn't call it plus size in those days. We just said fat. There was a store called The Forgotten Woman on Rodeo Drive because they wouldn't say any other word for fat. But I guess there was a shortage of fat women in America. Who knew? And they decided to branch out and have fat children. So I was a Charming Chubs. So I was a model for Charming Chubs, and then it became Stylish Stouts. It was all print model stuff. And then I became a husky, and my career ended. I was, a husky. Neither man nor boy.
It's that awkward period.
That very awkward thing.
Until you get the adult husky role.
That's right. It says nothing fits, and I was just never comfortable, as I said, in real clothes. But it was part of it. I wasn't really comfortable in what Lane Bryant put me in either. But they're out of business.
So is there evidence remaining of these photographs?
No, and I have done a deep dive. We keep looking and something will surface.
Someone's got to have it.
I know. I know that I was on. Who used to do that? Jay Leno, I think, used to do it on his show where he would pull embarrassing things from early in your career.
Oh, yeah.
And he said, we tried like hell to find these things, and we just couldn't. We found stuff that was adjacent. And I used to have a New York Times Magazine page that had me with Carol Lindley, the contrast. Goodness. The idea was being if you put your fat, starker kid in Lane Bryant, Charming Chubs, he will land this shiksa goddess. Carol Lindley was gorgeous, blonde. She looked like a Disney, princess, and we were friends for years and years and years. And she couldn't find. She said, "Oh, I have that," and then she said, "I don't know where the hell it is. I can't find the thing." And so,
all right. So we're putting out an alert that if you have anything in your attic that resembles Bruce Vilanch as a small, adorable, chubby boy.
Any child from the Lane Bryant ad. There weren't many.
Any child. Any of the Lane Bryant. That would make a great documentary that we revisit and we catch up with all the Lane Bryant child models.
That's right. But the idea was back then, there really were no plus-size models. There would be women who couldn't buy ready-to-wear off the rack because unless at some very kind of cheap place, and so that's who they cast because they didn't want to say, "Hey, 300-pound lady, this is for you." They didn't think that was a really smart strategy.
I would call my store Clothes That Fit.
Clothes That Fit. There you go.
Because people come in all sizes.
There is one. It's called Dress Barn.
Okay.
Can you imagine going? Nothing against Dress Barn.
Is there
I hope
hay
they
on the
contribute
floor?
to all my charities. Yeah. But there is a chain called Dress Barn.
Okay.
And I kept thinking, would you go to a store called the Dress Barn? Unless you were in like Ottumwa, Iowa, or someplace where there was every kind of barn, so there might as well be a dress barn.
I think you're thinking that name reeks of discount.
Well, yeah. I think that's true.
Like they don't spend a lot of money on chandeliers. So,
well,
So,
but yet it doesn't say dollar dresses. It's not that.
dollar dresses.
So, did your size as a child lead to you developing the hard outer core of humor to protect yourself?
Because I wasn't athletic at all, and I also was not interested in any of the things that kids were normally talking about. Because I also had no math gene. I had no kind of like Bill Nye science guy. I didn't have that, and I wasn't interested in building things. I was interested in writing Noel Coward plays. That was, the kind of thing I would look for. Well, I just had a life of the mind, and most of the kids I knew didn't, and they resented me for that, I think. And they bullied the kid who couldn't really defend himself. So I discovered if I told them a joke or made them laugh, as Whoopi always said,
I went
you get
through
a
that
head
too.
start.
But your mom always appreciated your personality. She knew she had a delightful child. Yeah. And I think that goes a long way when one of our parents thinks we're awesome.
Well, they both did, actually. My father wasn't demonstrative. He was a scientist. He was a doctor, and he but he appreciated my mother, who was a very flamboyant theatrical personality who never had a chance to express it professionally because she married a doctor. And but they both loved theater. Then my father particularly loved musicals. So I was exposed to that very early. And they were so smart because they realized when I was happy making faces in the mirror, and they would see that, they would go, let him do what makes him happy, because it became clear I wasn't going to do any of the other conventional things. But they would say things like,
God bless him for...
You could be a lawyer. They took me to see Compulsion with Orson Welles, where he played Leopold and Loeb's defender, I think. And he's at the big, all those courtroom dramas have big arias that are called closing statements, but they're always arias for the lawyer to do. And they said, see, you could act in the courtroom. You could be a lawyer, make money, and act, as opposed to just being an actor and not make money. So I thought, well,
so you wanted to be an actor before you wanted to write comedy?
Well, because I had fun. It was expressive. I could do it right away, and I wasn't writing anything. I mean, I was a kid. The writing started in high school, basically, and I was the editor of the high school paper. And because I wasn't getting cast in things, because I would go into New York, and I was just too young. I wasn't authentic. I had a deep voice, and I was big, and I looked older, but I was reading opposite people who were the real thing. So I wasn't going to get cast. So I started writing about that.
So when did you learn to type?
I learned to type at summer camp because there was a newspaper in summer camp, and it was a one-man job. I did it because nobody else wanted. They were all outside, or they were in arts and crafts, or doing something like swimming, and I would be in there, and I taught myself to type.
You really taught yourself, because a lot of times we see reporters, historically relevant reporters, and there's like a clip of them, and they're just, they're doing this. But you're typing.
No, I don't hunt and peck. I actually have my own kind of typing method. It's different from. I tried to learn the regular typing method, but I found that the pinky was hitting keys and it wasn't strong enough, and mine was better.
That's excellent, because then you can really think like a writer once you can just get those ideas out of your head.
Well, yeah, it's Neil Simon once said to me, never leave anything, never finish anything. Always leave something to be done so you can come back to the typewriter and do it. And because the blank page is the enemy, of course. Now we'd have to say the blank screen,
my favorite.
But the typing is the same, unless, of course, you write on your phone with your thumbs. But yeah, it was. It's like sitting at a piano when you're a musician.
Yes.
And your hands just go there and it just flows.
So you wrote newspaper stuff.
Yeah.
So journalism, which people I've worked with, it always teaches you brevity, and it teaches you to condense stuff, right? And that makes for a successful joke
writer. Even if you're
as well.
writing the kind of stuff I did, which was features, show business personalities and stunts and things like that, because the Tribune made me a personality because it sold papers, so I would do weird things, and it was I was a hippie, and so that was fun to exploit that for them because they were such conservative paper. They were. I mean, I was the first person in the history of the Tribune to take Yom Kippur off. They had no idea what it was. Mm-hmm. I had to look it up. They had to look it up.
So were you at the Siskel or the Ebert paper?
It's a Siskel. Okay. Siskel was the movie critic, and I was his number 2. Mm-hmm. So I would get to review all the pictures he didn't want to see, all the Disney movies. And I'd sit there with Roger, who loved Disney movies, and we'd sit there together at 9 o'clock in the morning in the screening room watching The Happiest Millionaire.
How fun.
Movies like that. But Gene was very high-minded. And Roger was of the Pauline Kael school. Roger liked visceral stuff. Roger liked horror movies. He liked all that kind of stuff. And Gene was, everything had to be Citizen Kane. didn't really matter.
Roger still has his own website, and they still do reviews of stuff.
That's his wife. She runs it, and she has people who run it. It's RogerEbert.com. Mm-hmm. And so it's nice to see that they don't sign their reviews, so it's quoted RogerEbert.com. Mm-hmm. So it's kind of nice to see Roger, still in the zeitgeist.
Yeah, it's like become a brand.
Yeah,
which is really interesting. Now, I just watched yesterday Get Bruce again, because it's like, that's just such a great movie. It's so much fun to watch. You're just like, you're just in it with you guys creating all of this just hilarity for everyone. But in the doc, you talk about what's required for an individual to become a big star, and it's that steely self-focus because the product is you. But what you bring to the table is not just your talent, but also your intuitive empathy, and you're maybe equal parts writer and shrink. So because
I think everybody is.
Wow.
Well, you mean every writer is?
No. A lot of writers. I said to my manager some years ago, I want to write a novel, and she said, "No, you're not a novelist. Novelists go off into the country and get hobbled by their nurses. They sit down for 3 months and they write the book. They don't have, if they can afford to live like that. But you're far too social." She said, "And you're a performance artist. You've created a persona and you perform. And I don't think you have the discipline to go off and actually sit down and write a novel." And so far, so good. She's right. I haven't. Or maybe I just haven't had the thing I wanted to write about that would cause me to put everything else.
When did you go from the newspaper to writing things that made people laugh in an audience?
I went to the newspaper because my parents said, "Be a journalist because newspapers will never die." They're prescient. They weren't. But so I was at the Chicago Tribune, and I met Bette Midler, and I started writing for Bette. She was just at the beginning of her career. She was on Broadway in Fiddler on the Roof, getting married every night, and then getting pillaged by Cossacks. So she had an act, and a friend of mine was managing her. He ran the Improv. Bud Friedman.
Bud Friedman was gave me my career that guy.
But Bud Friedman, I had met a year earlier when he had another client named Freddie Prinz, who came to play Mr. Kelly's in Chicago, and bombed, but I wrote a fabulous piece about him because I thought he was brilliant. But the audience didn't want. The audience was there to see Jonah Jones, who was a jazz vibraphone. They were not interested in the Hungarican or any of that stuff. A year later, he came back after Chico and the Man was the #1 show, sold out the place, and they laughed at every single line. And he did the exact same act he had done a year before.
That's a really interesting commentary about fame and everything else.
And he came off and he said to me, "You're the only one who knows what I did. I had to prove it to myself. If they want to love you, they will love you. You have to really screw up for them not to love you. And if they don't know who you are, you have to prove it to them, and sometimes they just don't care."
Wow.
And he was brilliant. Nobody remembers that.
Oh,
he
no,
was
I had his album. He really
quite a brilliant guy.
Yeah.
And, obviously a very depressed guy. But anyway, so Bud had managed him, and that he was a part of all that, and he was now managing Bette, and he asked me to write about her if I liked her, and I thought she was fantastic. She said, "That was a funny column. You got any lines?" And I said, "Yeah," and that was it. 55 years later, we're still doing it.
Oh my God! And my favorite was the one that was taped in Vegas that ran on HBO.
Viva Las Vegas.
Oh my God!
Viva Las
now,
Vegas.
did you write jokes, or did you help her create some of the characters like mermaids and wheelchairs and all that?
It all came from the same pool.
Did you write with her or write by yourself?
I wrote by myself, and then I would sit down with her and we would write. Which is actually how I do it with everybody. I mean, even on an award show, you come in, somebody has to present something, and you give them a script, and that's where the negotiating starts. And sometimes it's negotiating, and sometimes it's just actually improving, or putting it more in their voice. What I have a facility for is learning who they are.
Learning who they are, writing for their voice, which is the same as sitcom writing. You're writing for a specific character where people are waiting for a type of thing because they know this person and they can't wait for it. So it's this anticipation, but you're also giving them the confidence to deliver this material that we've decided together, this is going to work, and you need to own it.
Right.
But I always had empathy for the writers on the Oscar shows.
Yeah.
Because you could write a brilliant line, and somebody can attempt to deliver it
Yes.
that doesn't have a clue
I know.
what's funny, and I feel bad for the writer. I don't feel bad for the actor. They tank, but they don't care, but I feel bad for
I
the
know.
writer because it doesn't
Yeah,
get what it
and
deserves.
especially if they throw the writer under the truck.
Oh, yeah.
which has happened recently. I mean, a couple of years ago, Joe Coy did the Golden Globes. And it was a gig he took 10 days before the show, and he shouldn't have. And the problem was, while he has a gigantic audience of people who go to see him, that's not the audience that watches the Golden Globes or is in the audience at the Golden Globes. So a lot of people were saying, "Who is this guy?"
No, that
and
was
here
it.
he's making fun of them. And they're looking, going, "You're making fun of me. I'm sitting here getting a Golden Globe."
Yeah.
And I mean, even if you could buy and sell me, because he's selling out the SoFi, he's selling out the Kia Forum, but they don't know him. They just don't know him. So
That's a tough
so
job
he
for a
felt
comic.
it just himself going down in flames, and so he said, "Well, I told him that wouldn't work." That kind of line. Much to his credit, when that came out in the ensuing days, he went to every writer and apologized and sent them something, a little gift, and said, "I screwed up. I'm so sorry.
It was just a defense
I was
thing.
in a panic."
Yeah, it was.
And I thought that was very, very upright of him.
It was a desperation, like just grabbing for a life ring.
That can be a brutal audience for a stand-up to do those
Yeah.
shows, even an established stand-up.
Oh,
you know?
well, especially because he was followed by Nikki Glaser,
Yeah.
who's very dirty in her Netflix shows,
Yeah.
and I mean she burst out of that Tom Brady
Yeah.
roast because you can do stuff on Netflix that you
Right.
can't do on NBC.
Right.
So she was treading landmines through her whole opening thing, and of course. They were sitting there going, "Okay, so how do you do? We don't know you that well either." And she's really good. She's smart, and
But she had a little juice from the Tom Brady roast, so people kind of said,
it
"Ooh,
was
what's she
after
going to
that.
say?"
So that's the most watched entertainment show of the decade. I mean, unbelievable.
But we're so siloed now that sometimes somebody is selling out arenas, and that doesn't mean anybody sort of outside of that arena knows who, walking by the arena knows
Sure.
who they are, where we used to all be looking in the same
I
direction,
mean, get a room full of white people and ask them who Fluffy is.
right?
Fluffy is one of the most successful comedians in the world.
All
He's
around
awesome.
the world.
All around the
Dodger
world.
Stadium.
All
so.
around the world. If you don't know who Fluffy is, his name is Enrique Iglesias, and he is
No, it's Gabriel Iglesias.
Gabriel Iglesias. Enrique Iglesias is a singer whose father I used to work with, by
I
the way.
love Julio.
Yeah, Julio I worked with. I wrote Julio's act. I speak no Spanish. I wrote Julio's act.
No
Don't
kidding.
ask.
Well,
was-
so give
but
me a Julio line.
I can't. Oh my God, I can't remember. Seriously,
I'll
it was
tell you a
long
great
time
Julio
ago.
Iglesias story. So I was working at the Improv when it was at the Riviera, which is
Yeah.
the shithole of all time in Las Vegas.
Yes.
It no longer exists.
That point,
and we were
yeah.
doing our show, and in walks Roseanne. Roseanne Barr comes just to visit with the comics.
Wow, yeah.
She's working at Caesar's Palace, and she's weeping.
Yes.
And everybody said, "What happened?" She said, "I just opened for Julio Iglesias, and nobody understood what the hell I was saying, and I tanked, and it destroyed her for a while." And I won't make this about me, but I have a funny story about Bette Midler.
Okay.
So I'm not going to say his name because I don't want to hear from him, but he was a very conservative Mormon anchor person. And so Bette was doing a New Year's Eve show in Las Vegas, and we thought it would be great to force him into exposure of a Bette Midler show. So he said, "Hey, we're going to," because his daughter lived in Vegas. I said, "We're going to treat you to the Bette Midler show." He'd never seen her. He had no idea what her act was like.
wow.
And we bought 4 tickets to see Bette Midler wherever she was doing that show. And he didn't speak to me for weeks after that because he's so tight and, he's very conservative, and it was hysterical.
Well, I'll tell you a similar story. I wrote Donnie and Marie for years. The first Donnie Marie show, and then we 1976 we shot a show in Cleveland for the first HBO special, actually the first big HBO concert show ever. And it was called The Fabulous Bette Midler Show, and it got syndicated. And so there were stations showing it, but of course a lot of it was too dirty, and so there was an edited version. And the station that had bought it in Salt Lake City wouldn't even show the edited version. they said, no, it's too much, it's too much. And so I called Donnie, and I said, and I sent him the tape. I said, look at this and tell me what you think. And he said, it's hilarious. It's wonderful. Did you think it's... She said, well, they're nuts. He went over and he called the head of this... Now, Donny Osmond on line 2 saying...
He's the head Mormon.
He's the biggest Mormon. They tithe, they're the biggest tithers in the church. So he called this guy who ran the station and said, you're nuts. You've got to run this. There's nothing offensive about this thing. And so I'm sure the guy at the church said, will you tell that to the elders if they come after me? And Donnie, upstanding guy, said, absolutely, yes. He's a big Mormon and he believes in what he believes. He's a Mormon and he believes.
Didn't he testify at Congress when there was that kind of like uproar about lyrics and rock music or something? I think
he did something like that. I forget. I get it confused.
He said something like, you could take puppy love the wrong way.
Oh, that's right.
So stop censoring.
I do all the time.
Well, COVID brought boredom, which brought Star Wars Christmas to 30-year-old podcasters who needed an explanation, and you were there to provide one. Mm-hmm. So is it time to go there, Fritz?
Absolutely.
Star Wars, well, it's not a Star Wars holiday special because they celebrate Life Day.
Life Day.
Correct.
Yes,
which really makes more sense than Christmas.
George Lucas invented it. He was ahead of his time. It was Seinfeld came along with Festivus for the rest of us later on.
Yeah.
He may have been inspired by Life Day. I would hate to ascribe that to anyone, but this was George's holiday. He was coming up with, and George never let go of it.
And you had to pitch this show to George Lucas.
No. George Lucas had pitched it to CBS.
Oh.
And they bought it because Star Wars was hot. And George was only doing it because he was about to start shooting The Empire Strikes Back, which was the second movie, or as we now know, number 5 in the
that's
canon.
Very confusing.
Yes. So it had been a year and a half since Star Wars Episode 4, A New Hope, had been released. So I learned all these things. So he wanted to keep, stirring the pot. And so he had a bunch of ideas. He had 10 different stories, he told us. And this was the last one. He had sold them. He was going to make 6 movies, which he made. And then he had sold the others off to different things, novelizations and stuff. And this one he sold to CBS, and it was an original musical. And I thought, okay, that's strange. And my first thought was George doesn't watch television. Maybe he stopped watching it when we were watching Captain Video on Saturday mornings and
Flash Gordon,
Sky King, Niece Penny, and all that. He may have stopped at that point because that was our Saturday morning viewing when I was growing up, and or he would never have sold them an original musical, especially one starring the Wookiees, who speak no language. They can't sing. They can't dance. They can't cross the room without tripping over something. The only sound. So it's really not conducive. But CBS wanted to be on the Star Wars gravy train, and so they bought it. And now we were sat in a room with George, the writers, and we were tasked with coming up with the script for the show. The gift was, because they couldn't speak, we had to have people translate everything they said to keep the story going. Mm-hmm. That was an invitation to guest stars.
Sure.
And, of course, that was what those variety specials were all about. They were guest stars. So we had Art Carney, we had Diane Carroll, we had B. Arthur, we had Jefferson Starship, Cirque du Soleil, and Harvey Korman, and they were all, in essence, serving the plot and explaining what was going on while the Wookiees were grunting and groaning. And George got us roped in Harrison Ford and Mark Hamill. And Carrie Fisher was eager to be a singer-songwriter. I'd met her, she was in the chorus of her mother's, Debbie Reynolds, Broadway show Irene. But that's not what she wanted to do. She wanted to be Joni Mitchell. Oh. And so she came with her guitar, and she played something she'd written on the guitar, but I said, so you're going to have to sit there like Princess Leia with the Danish pastry hairdo and the white thing and the guitar that covers your head and the guitar, and you don't want to be like your mother, but you will be like your mother playing The Singing Nun, which was one of Debbie's movies. Not one of her big movies, but the record was huge. The movie, not so much. So Carrie thought about that and said, yes, no, you're right. I think I won't do this, but I'll sing something else. But a Joni Mitchell, she brought in a Joni Mitchell song she wanted to sing. And I said, that's nice. Sing called Green, if you know Joni's catalog. Just a little green. It's kind of a Christmassy song.
A little bit,
and
yeah.
so we had to call Joni, and Joni, we told her Princess Leia would be singing Green, and Joni went, no.
Oh, my God.
So it didn't, she had that very high trill soprano then.
Yes.
But Ken and Mitzi Welch, who wrote all of the Carol Burnett medley stuff on her show, came in, and they wrote a song, a Life Day song, that Carrie sings at the end of the show. It has to be seen to be believed.
Just so moving.
It really is.
Yeah.
So did you have to get, did first of all, was there branding involved? Did they want you to mention stuff about or get right to particular characters to stay
that's
to
a very good question. Well, the Wookiees, and we had Darth Vader, and we had C-3PO and R2-D2 and Chewie and Han Solo and Leia and
okay, that's good.
Luke. So they had all of them, but yeah, and he also wanted to introduce a character named Boba Fett, who
oh my God,
which he did he wanted to have a full length animated feature, which he couldn't get made, so he made a 10-minute thing in Canada, and that's what the Star Wars acolytes remember, because Boba Fett now has his own show on Disney Plus, 40 years later.
But interestingly, prescient with the talking video screens, early generation laptops,
Right.
video tutorials, and how the Empire has declared martial law.
That's right, exactly, all of that. And the stormtroopers were chasing Chewie and Han Solo because Chewie was trying to get home to the Kashyyyk, the
It
Wookiee
looks
planet.
like DC this morning.
Exactly.
do you have to?
They look like Ford Fusions.
Did you have to
every
get
time I'm
gagged?
behind a Ford Fusion, I go Stormtrooper.
Did you have to get gags approved by George? I mean, to know what your parameters were?
After the first meeting, and he realized what was going to happen to the show, he hightailed it back to Marin to work on the Empire, and he kind of stayed away from it. We were using a director who was brilliant, a movie director from Canada he liked, but he was directing it like a movie, and we were over budget on day 2 and over schedule. So they fired him and brought in Steve Binder, who was a big variety director.
And that's the guy that did the Elvis.
Who did Elvis,
Yeah.
Elvis Aloha. And so George kind of laid off. I mean, he got everything. He got the script, but he never actually said anything to me that that's funny or that works. He really remained above.
He doesn't
the whole
seem
thing.
like one of those guys that reacts strongly to something good. I've watched documentaries about him on the Disney Channel. They have all those, the movies about something being made. He never seems to react positively to anything he's seeing.
Yeah, well,
but a hard man to please.
He was having a thing with Linda Ronstadt at the time, and she had been having a thing with one of the writers of another show that I was on, and so I got to know her. I'd known her through just show business, but I said, "Is he always like this?" And she said, "Yeah, that's his go-to. That's what he is. You won't get much out of him."
But there was this time period during which this special could occur, and it was after the first movie, before this sort of religious reverence for this
that didn't
franchise.
happen till after the first 3. The internet came in, and when the movies were available on the internet, that's when the religion, what I call the Scientology of the nerds, began.
But even the DVDs, I think it began before the internet.
Well, it was VHS at the beginning.
Yeah.
I mean, the first 3 were on VHS, and then that morphed into DVDs. But I think, but they had no place to communicate before the internet.
Sure.
I mean, they all were sitting at home watching these things and being
It became
passionate.
a gang with the internet.
That's
and
right.
Good
the
point.
internet
Platoon of
created
trolls. Oh,
exactly
Jesus
created
God.
that monster.
And you also did the Paul Lynde Halloween special.
Yes.
And I got to say, to me, it sounded hysterical.
Yeah.
I was a big fan of Paul Lynde. He was one of those people, especially on Hollywood Squares. He didn't even have to say anything, and he made me laugh out loud.
Well,
And
that-
you
that
had
was-
some very ironic casting in that with Betty White and the band Kiss.
Yes, that was
Unbelievable.
What actually drew the ratings. I mean, Paul did 7 specials, so he was a big draw. But he was a flavor. He would come in. One of the reasons he was so big on Hollywood Squares was he would come in and do a joke because everything he said was funny. And even just saying when he talks about Dorothy and the Wizard of Oz and your little dog Toto. I mean, that was funny.
Just the way he said things.
His whole thing started from Bye Bye Birdie, where he
Yeah.
sang, "Kids, what the hell is wrong with these kids today?" And he had a kid, and he was saying, he said, "Nobody respects me." And the kid said, "I respect you, Daddy." He said, "Who wants respect from a 10-year-old?" And that was him. He was Mr. Negative.
Yeah.
He was negative energy. And he came from Broadway, and he'd come up with Woody Allen and Mel Brooks, and they were movie stars who wrote their own stuff. And he wrote, but they were lovable nebbishes. And the audiences enjoyed watching them. And the whole idea of Paul Lynde was he was the spoiler. He was the one who would get between Rock Hudson and Doris Day. That kind of that thing,
And you also revealed something very lovely about it, that he had, when he was doing serious acting,
Yes.
he was very gifted and was very believable
He
as a
actually
serious.
was.
And it seemed like one of the real touching moments of the special was when he was just doing.
Well, when he opened and closed it, one of the reasons why it worked so well was we came up with Halloween as a theme for it, and he was already Uncle Arthur on Bewitched. So he was already a witch, and so it seemed to make sense. But when he told us that he hated Halloween as a kid, and that became the opening monologue, and it was actually kind of serious. He said, "I hated Halloween because I was fat. I wasn't just fat, I was fat." And I didn't have a costume. My mother put me in the shower curtain. She had to let it out. And this was all real, and so he was being sincere. And at the end of the show, he does this thing, thanking people watching and say, "Well, now I can finally enjoy Halloween because I've gotten rid of the demons." And I thought, well, this is a little too real. I can't believe he's doing this, but he wanted to do it. Yeah, he really wanted to act, and in one sketch, he actually kind of let go of that character. The thing with Florence Henderson, who played, he was the Sheik, Rudolph Valentino, and she was Florence of Arabia. And it was he meets witches, and witches give him 3 wishes, and
Which is what Noel Coward called, what's his name?
Peter O'Toole.
Peter O'Toole. When
Yes,
he said,
exactly.
he
Dolly,
said-
you were so beautiful.
Yeah, he was the most beautiful man in the
Yes.
world. They should call you
They should have
Florence of
called it
Arabia.
Florence of Arabia.
Oh, my God.
He was pretty.
No, he was.
So let's do Brady Bunch Hour because, yes, I mean, okay, first of all, you go from the Brady Bunch, which is a heavy lift, and then you go to the Osmonds who can actually sing and dance.
Yes.
So was that kind of like, oh my God, I'm in heaven?
I know, it was reverse.
Yeah.
I
So talk
did it
about
because
that.
I came out. You asked earlier when I transitioned. That was when Beth started Manhattan Transfer. She gave them their first push.
Yeah.
Her dresser's brother was Tim Hauser, the Manhattan Transfer. Fayette kept saying, "You got to go see him. You got to go see him." And so she brought Ahmet Ertegun, who ran her record label, Atlantic, and he signed into a record deal. And then we put an act together, and Fred Silverman, who at the time was running CBS, he ran everything. I was
Yeah.
waiting for him to get PBS, but
It's like
he
the
never.
EGOT of networks or something.
Yeah, he ran out of networks.
Yeah.
So, and he bought them as a summer replacement show for Cher.
Transfer.
And so I came out here to write that, and I stayed. And the show got critically, they loved it, but nobody watched it. I mean, it was on Sunday nights at 7:00 in August.
I watched it, Bruce.
You watched it?
Yeah.
Oh my God! So you didn't watch what were our competition? Walt Disney, Wonderful World of.
60 Minutes.
No, we were on CBS. They were. I think they took time off or something. or they moved later. If we'd followed them, we might have had a bigger audience. Punky Brewster and Silver Spoons.
Skipped
Lord
it,
have
yeah.
mercy.
And so when it was over, I said, people kept saying, "Oh, we love that show, but it was so hip. You're such a hip writer. You're just too hip."
So edgy.
And I knew Florence Henderson from Broadway, and I was having dinner with her one night, and I said, "Florence, I'm too hip," and she says, "Oh, I know how you feel." I said, "You do?" I'd never associated too hip
sweetheart.
with you.
Yeah.
And of course, then I got to know. I mean, I forgot I know her. She was really bawdy and married a very funny Jewish guy and had 4 kids. And there was she was never Carol Brady.
Yeah.
That was always an acting job. But she took it because she had 4 kids and she didn't want to go on the road or go to New York. She wanted to stay in L.A.
Yeah.
And so she thought for however long it lasts, she had no idea it would last as long as it did, or that it would echo through the corridors of time.
And will
she
forever.
would never be rid of it.
Never.
But so she said, "Come and write the Brady Bunch. No one will ever say you're too hip again." And by
so you
God,
wrote-
she was right.
You
What a
wrote
remedy.
the special, right?
We did the variety special.
Yeah.
We did a variety special, which was turned out to be a pilot for 9 episodes. 'Cause
Oh.
it was a
And
weird.
it was this show within a show thing, like the Jack Benny thing, where
That was
they play like it was the Bradys.
You got it.
They lived in Malibu, but now because they did all those talent shows as kids, they have a variety show,
Yes.
and Dad has to be in it.
Oh, so that variety show came out before the series came out?
No, after.
No, it was
Oh,
after.
after. That's
Yeah.
It was after the series. And Fred wanted to do it with the Partridge Family, who actually were a performing unit in
Sure.
their show. And Shirley Jones was the mother, and she and David Cassidy. They didn't want to do it. So he turned to the Brady Bunch because the Brady kids had an act they did at state fairs and things.
They had put out a couple of
and
albums.
put out some
Yeah.
albums, and so he thought. But the idea that the Brady family, as we knew them, would be given a variety special was crazy.
Yeah.
I mean, and everybody else you could fudge it because the kids were in an act, and Florence was Florence. But Bob Reed, I mean, playing Mike Brady, he's an architect.
Yeah.
So the first episode, the pilot we did was the family gets together and wants to fire him and bring in a new father.
Tony Randall.
Tony Randall, because they figure he can't make it. And once Bob bought into that, I said, from now on, any number you do, you can fumfer around because you're Mike Brady. You're not Robert Reed. And so Mike Brady, the architect, might step on the wrong foot, be out of tune, be whatever.
Perfect.
And so he got more comfortable, and he was most comfortable when I would put him in drag,
So-
or I put him in Carmen Miranda drag.
You did, and we want to hear more about that. Is there any kind of neck vulnerability when you're this top heavy?
Well, I don't think not with that costume.
He's a tall guy.
He's a tall guy, and the dress was built for Tony to kneel. Seriously, we found that out. But it was a thing, and it was strapped, and he wasn't in it that long, and it was all very light, very lightweight. When I did Hairspray, which for 2 years I played Edna Turnblad,
Yeah.
the girls in the show, in the finale, all had those Marge Simpson wigs that were sky high. And in order to stay on while they danced, they had a rod going through them that went down behind them and down their back. So the wig would remain stationary, and they all had neck issues.
Sure.
And there was a chiropractor
my God.
backstage every night. Everybody,
business.
the girls, yeah. I mean, my wigs were modest by comparison. I didn't have to wear a rod. So.
Thanks for coming along down the media path, and however you have found your way to us, we would love for you to like and subscribe and give us a nice review, because as creators, it is our appointed duty to ask you to do that. You may also want to find us on Instagram and Blue Sky, where we are at Media Path Pod, and on Facebook, where our show page is Media Path Podcast, and our Facebook group is Media Path with Fritz and Wheezy Podcast Community. If you are listening to our show, we are also a video podcast on YouTube at Media Path Podcast. You can write to us at mediapathpodcast@gmail.com. My TikTok is Louise Palanker, where I post behind-the-scenes peeks and clips from the show. And Fritz's TikTok is Fritz Coleman Comedy. He posts stand-up clips and popular dance crazes. Our website is mediapathpodcast.com. There you can binge episodes and our spicy newsletter. Thank you so much. on with the rest of the show. This was a time period where everyone who was LGBTQ and plus was closeted. Maybe in behind the scenes there were people that were out amongst friends, but Robert Reed, as a handsome leading man, was not going to ever be coming out in his lifetime. And what was that pressure like for him?
It was intense. I mean, first of all, he had a lot of personal pressure. He was living with his mother, out in San Marino, and he didn't want to upset her. And he did an interesting thing. He played a trans character on Medical Center, and got an Emmy nomination for it before we did the show, but. That didn't make him any happier. I mean, he was doing it, to show range, and I guess it was. He kind of thought if they knew about him, they would say, "Oh, that's not range at all." But of course, it was. But with the Bradys, his particular concern was he had been a surrogate father to these kids during the first iteration of the show when they were really young, and. Some of them had parents who would like Mama Rose, who would do anything, and were not necessarily working in the best interest of the kids. And so he stepped in. And now most of them were, some of them were of age, and most of them were older, so he didn't have to do that. But I think he felt that it was if he came out. First of all, it would have been like pedophile, and then it would have been betrayal of never having told them. I mean, I just think it was something that he didn't want to deal with. And as you say, the bottom line was he was a leading man, and he wanted to be able to play the romantic parts. He was funny, and he was, all that. And then the next time I saw him after the show was on Broadway in Death Trap. Where he's playing a bisexual guy, and that's part of the whole engine of the show, and it just kind of made me laugh and still nobody was saying anything.
A hard time back in the Rock Hudson era when they had studios would arrange marriages, so they'd say you'd be married to a beard and the whole Spencer Tracy, Katharine Hepburn thing, and the just the fakeness of that had to be exhausting for people who were involved in it.
It was very. He was closeted in every way. He was afraid to show a lot of emotions. He just wasn't that kind of guy, and I think a lot of it came from the fact he just didn't want to reveal anything about himself.
Wow. It was all too much of a, let's keep this all contained because one little thing slips out and then the floodgates are gonna.
Well,
and the kids loved him.
Of course, and I think they knew, and they didn't care.
I think that as they got older, they knew. They didn't know when they were little, but as they got older, and they began figuring out the world.
Right, you figure out the world, and I have a gay brother. Fritz has a gay stepbrother, and it's like, who cares? Hopefully, people can have a lot better mental health because less people will be holding on to secrets and not living their authentic lives.
Right.
Yeah.
So let's talk about Ice Pirates. I love Ice Pirates because we get to see your range in acting with Weird Wendon. Tell us who Weird Wendon was, and how did you survive just the physicality of that part?
The Ice Pirates was started as an action movie, and I was brought in to do a rewrite on it to make it a satirical kind of space comedy, a sort of Star Wars almost parody. Not as far as Spaceballs, which followed it, but just to lighten it up. And it was about ice in the future, in a galaxy where ice is a precious commodity and is transported from planet to planet by ships. And the ice pirates are people who raid those ships and steal the ice and sell it to another bidder. And I was Weird Wendon, who was the emperor of a particular part of the galaxy, who had fallen in league with the ice pirates because I was a compulsive gambler. And I gambled away my body. And all that was left was my head. And
what was done with your body? Like, how was it utilized?
We never discussed that. We never got into it.
Okay.
But I felt bad because it seemed like whatever you did and however they did it, it seemed hot.
Yeah.
Like, oh my God, were you sweating to death?
It felt like maybe strip poker where it's like an arm at a time,
that was it. Yeah, it was that kind of thing. And they would place me on various robots. And so there were a couple of scenes where I was, tottering around like R2. C3PO.
Or like one of those dogs with wheels for back legs for a little while.
Most of the time I was in a table with my head coming through, in the wall with my head coming through, or sitting on a throne, just, in a thing I couldn't move in. So it was exhausting. It was
I can imagine that lunch breaks were different.
I was not supposed to play the part. It was Paul Williams who was doing it.
Right.
And he was, Paul Small Williams. He was very tiny, and so he was. So they had to do all new costumes and stuff and a whole new concept because it was easy to shove Paul into a cabinet.
And there was a great character named Space Herpy.
The Space Herpy
the
was
singular of herpes.
A monster, yes. Well, that was the idea, yeah. And a space herpy, but it never worked. It was like a robotically, remotely controlled Mr. Slinky, covered in goo. It just was worm-like, and it would slither along places, but it had a mind of its own. And you could see the operator outside a camera range going, as the thing would fall off a table and crawl up the wall or do something ridiculous.
That's a stressful day. We're gonna do our game. We're gonna do IMDb roulette because we want the book. You can read the book, and
yes.
I just want to say
It's fun.
the writing style is this cascade of interwoven threads of showbiz personalities that your mind is just extraordinary. I would read certain paragraphs twice just to get it because
it's so funny.
There's a laugh every 3 seconds.
Brilliant.
And your mind, the way that you can remember how people are connected to people, do you look that up or is that just coming out of you?
Well, I did keep journals. Some of them I had in the Nichols Canyon flood, one of several Nichols Canyon floods that I was in. Some of them got destroyed, but I kind of reconstructed from other things I kept. And then I have to confess I did have to Wikipedia the Star Wars Holiday Special, just to make sure that I wasn't misremembering the sequence of things.
Plus, those Wookiees had these names with all vowels.
All vowels. Yeah. I mean. No, basically consonants and almost no vowels. Or if they had vowels, they would have 3 of them in a row.
Well, it probably doesn't matter how you spell it in English because it's a transliteration.
It is absolutely. And I said it's a lot like Hawaiian. Everything, a lot of Ks, Kashyyyk, and Wookiee has 2 O's and 2 E's.
Yes, a lot of vowels. I have one question for my brother before we do IMDb roulette. Craig wants to know why there has not yet been a Carol Channing biography written.
There has not been. I thought maybe somebody had done it along the way. Probably because she didn't want it, or she was going to do it and didn't do it. She did do a memoir, which was the famous one where she announced that she was black. She was part black. Apparently, she was. It was part black. But
oh my God!
Yeah, that's why I have such rhythm. And I said, you don't have to tell them that, Carol. It's not really. Lay back on that one. But. I'll tell you a true story is that I did Johnny Depp was on the Oscars and he didn't know quite how to deliver because he has no Johnny Depp character. So I said, well, why don't you do it kind of like Captain Jack Sparrow and Hunter Thompson combined, because there were 2 people he played and they were both baked out of their minds.
That's a good
So
note.
he had a good time doing that, and that kind of became a talk show thing. So. A few months later, my agent called me and said, I got a very unusual call from Johnny Depp's manager. Johnny wants to have lunch with you, and he's going to pitch you an idea. And this idea never will happen. But it would be a great favor if you would just go in and listen. I said, fine. What I got to lose? So I went in, and he pitched me the story, the movie he wanted to do, the Carol Channing story, with him as Carol.
Oh my God!
This
that's
is a true
hysterical.
story.
Yeah,
This really happened to you?
it's happened, and I kind of went, well, and then I suddenly realized, Carol was a construction. Carol created that person. She was not always, well, hello, Dolly. That was, that was not her. I mean, it was her a lot because people wanted that.
Okay.
But she was brilliant. She went to Bennington. She did the classics. She knew all kinds. We used to joke about it in her act. And I saw what he was, my first reaction was I said, you watched Ed Wood too many times. I said, you've crossed this bridge. Why would you? He said, because I'm fascinated at how she put that together. And
wow.
And I thought to myself, well, this could be like a 90-minute acting exercise in which, this. But first you'd have to be Carol Channing before all of that, which would be just kind of like gangly girl, society girl from San Francisco, and she kind of comes up with this thing.
Was the voice manufactured, or was that her real
That
voice?
It was her voice.
Exaggerated.
It was manufactured. It was extended, and she was playing it all the time. And then he talked about them. That's a point, and we went back and forth, and of course, it never was going to happen. But I just thought it was the most. And when he explained it to me, I kind of got, as an actor, he was the ultimate kind of exercise. Mm-hmm. And he was at that point in his career where if he said he wanted to do this, somebody would come up with the scratch. So, but of course, it never happened. But
maybe an episode of Medical Center.
That's next.
All right, so we're going to do IMDb Roulette, which is going to celebrate some of your bigger hits. So now, Bruce Vilanch, you have 94 writer credits, 45 actor credits, 3 producer credits, 18 soundtrack credits, 3 additional crew, 1 composer, and 168 appearances as yourself.
Then why is this volume so slim?
It's
because it's about the flops.
Exactly.
I wish I was as slim as this volume.
So we're going to touch upon the ones that we haven't yet in this conversation.
All right.
And I guess I'd like to hear a little bit more about Donnie and Marie. How were they to write for?
Well, he says it was like falling into a vat of stewardesses. That was when you could say stewardesses.
Yeah.
But they had flight attendant personalities because they had been trained from childhood to do that. But Marie desperately wanted to be an adult.
She was funny.
Oh, she's very talented. They would never let her because they saw her as a Mormon housewife, and they had 14 kids, and 13 of them were boys, and the ones who didn't wind up in the act wound up supporting the act. Yeah. And they had 1 girl, and she was not going to do it. They were, but she finally was. Pressed. They let her do it, and she was such a success that they realized they'd be fools not to let her do it. It made her happy, and also it gave the thing a uniqueness it didn't have before. Mm-hmm. And Fred Silverman pulled Donny and Marie out of that group and created. Do
they still perform, Donny and Marie, in Vegas? Right?
They did for years. Donny is back by himself.
Yeah.
Oh.
And Marie is not. I don't think is doing any of that, but she was very smart, and writing for them was a bit of a landmine because they wanted to do things that the Mormons would not let them do, the elders wouldn't let them do, and there was a whole gestalt, the family, the business, the religion, all one great big ball of wax, and so I ran into a lot of interesting censorship problems. Yeah,
so that must have been a good lesson for you as to how to negotiate all of these other elements that come into play whenever you're creating.
Well, she wanted to sing an adult song, and she wanted to sing. There was a song that Mickey Rooney did in Girl Crazy called "Treat Me Rough." We're surrounded by girls, and it's always "Treat me rough, muss my hair, I don't care." And I thought it'd be funny for her to do, and I knew Ira Gershwin, who had written the lyric, through Michael Feinstein, who was working for him, who had not yet become Michael Feinstein, but he was cataloging his career.
He's still the curator of the Gershwin library.
He is the curator. He is absolutely. He is the guy.
Wow.
And it stems from that early relationship. And he thought, Marie, she's terrific. I love her. She's great. And so I said, I submitted the song, and they said, she can't do that. It's too racy. It's too racy. And so I went back, hat in hand, and said, Ira, they won't let her do it. Well, why not? Well, because it's too, well, I'll fix it. And he starts writing a new lyric.
Wow.
And so I brought that in, and they said, no, it's still Teresa. I said, let me be clear about this. Ira Gershwin has rewritten a song for your daughter.
Yeah.
And you won't let her do it. And it is mild. It's not anything like you're making it out to. And they absolutely held fast. So he said, well, hell with them. But then I brought in a song that two other friends of mine, Melissa Manchester and Carol Sager, had written called Coming from the Rain.
Oh, I love
and
that
it's a
song.
beautiful song.
Yeah.
And they listened to it and they said, no, she can't do that. It's about a woman taking her husband back after he's left her and philandered. I said,
he was just walking around in the rain. We don't know what he was up to.
It could be anything.
He went to the bookstore.
It could be he went out, on a tear. It could be he went out and cried, and she says, "Come back."
Yeah.
It could be anything. However you want to interpret it, they held fast. So I brought them a song by Elton John.
Okay.
Don't let the sun go down on me. That they loved.
How about the daughter?
That they loved, and
okay.
she sang it, and now I'm in the booth with the network censor, Mrs. Futterman, and she's out there singing, don't let the sun go down on me, and Mrs. Futterman looking at me, I see what you did here.
Oh, that's a great story.
I guess the elders were not really hip to
the lingo.
the latest lingo.
Yeah.
They didn't
Exactly
care
right.
that they had to appeal to the whole country. They just cared.
No, it was them. It was, they were just, they were the keepers of the flame. I mean, like fundamentalists of any stripe are like that.
Yes, exactly.
Right, and when you've been given this honor, it feels like a gift from God that we are going to be the mouthpieces or the centerpieces or the missionaries, if you will, globally for this faith.
Yeah.
Then there's a ton of pressure on you.
Well, Marie has been divorced, which of course was not allowed. She's had 8 children. She's adopted. I mean, she's gone her own way.
I think they're
making
super
a
cool.
nice little bank with the diet commercials, though.
And she's done all of that.
I think they're cool. I think they're
And
talented.
she had a talk show, and they had a talk show, and they do a Vegas act together, and they do acts separately. And she did Broadway. She toured Sound of Music, King and I. She's done all of that stuff.
Fritz, what have you got?
Okay,
next?
1987, Dolly.
Ah, well, last I can talk about it. I just wrote a musical with Dolly, which is in Australia right now.
Oh,
wow.
It's a little thing that I came up with a woman named Trisha Paoluccio and her husband, Gabe Barry. He's a director, and she plays Dolly. She played Dolly in the 9 to 5 musical. And we had an idea during COVID about a 40-year-old a gay comic who's working as a waiter at Caroline's Comedy Club in New York. COVID hits. His relationship breaks up. The club closes. He has to quarantine in the attic of his parents' home in Longview, Texas, where he has an intimate relationship with his imaginary friend, Dolly Parton.
Oh, my God.
Nice.
Because he's a mega fan, and she steps down of a poster. So 2 characters, 5 musicians. We did 5 regional. Then, we did a Zoom of it, and I thought, well, Dolly will. She'll shoot it down. We want to use her catalog, and she loved it, and she's now our partner.
Oh my gosh.
And so we did 5 theaters in the States, and now we did 6 months UK, and now we're doing 6 months Australia. And then I think it will shut down because she just premiered her bio show in Nashville last weekend.
Her book is coming out soon.
Well,
right?
she's always got a book
so
coming out. But, I mean, this is her musical. This is her beautiful. This is this is her A Beautiful Noise. This is what they're all doing. A catalog show.
jukebox,
Yeah.
She's got an amazing catalog, though, I'll tell you
Oh, she's
that.
got a great catalog, but she doesn't want 2 shows in the marketplace
No.
to have.
But we still
so
want to
I
hear about the
understand
sitcom.
that. But here's what Dolly did. A very Dolly thing. When she decided a year ago that she was going to do this thing on Broadway, she said, when the option expires on your show, I'm not going to pick up the rights, but I'm waiving all my royalties from this day. And so she was getting the biggest piece because it's all her music.
Right.
So she's made no money off this thing. We've been a hit in the UK. We've been a hit in Australia. We did 6 productions around the country that were hits, and she's made no money off of it. And she's perfectly happy because that's what she said: make all you can while you can.
Wow.
This is why she's Dolly.
She
now,
is.
Back then, 87.
87.
She did a big variety show on ABC Sunday nights. They tried to make her Carol Burnett. and she's not Carol Burnett. You know, she's Dolly. She can only play those things that are close to the Dolly persona. And so people lost interest in it right away and she was singing a lot of stuff that she didn't feel comfortable singing in settings that didn't look like she belonged. And so they did a whole revamp, and I said they fired the 8 Jews who were writing it and brought in 8 new Jews because variety TV then was very Jewish.
Overhaul.
They hated women, they hated homos, but they loved Jews. Fortunately for me, I had 1 out of 3 that worked.
Oh my God, that's funny.
We came in as a rescue squad, and we did the shows, and we turned it into specials. We opened Dollywood. Went to the Grand Ole Opry. We took her to the Metropolitan Opera.
Wow.
We did Broadway. So every week was an event. But it wasn't going to last, and they canceled it after the first season. But we got friendly, and I wrote a lot of stuff for her. And I'm very fond of saying that we brought Tyne Daly in. We had one thing left. One element of the old show was Dolly played a truck stop waitress.
Yeah.
And we had guest stars come in characters, and Tyne came in as the truck driver. And she sang something that she brought in. It was wonderful. And Barry Brown, who was producing a revival of Gypsy and was looking for a star, called me up and said, I think she could play Rose.
Oh, my goodness.
And that was the beginning of that. And I'm very fond of telling this story. Because,
my goodness.
And she says, yeah, it's true. I can't deny it. That was how I got it. And as she became a Tyne Daly musical comedy star.
Wow.
And continued to do that for a while. So that was the high point. And we had some great people on the show. I mean, like Lenny Kravitz. But what were they going to do as a duet, Yeah. And who was I can't think of the other guy's name. We had a bunch of black artists, but she was not going to. There wasn't stuff that she could sing with them too much. So it was a fascinating failure. It really was. But we kept up over the years, and that's how I could call her and say, I have an idea for a show.
She seems like a lovely person. Never met her, but she just seems she has a good spirit.
Yes, absolutely. She does.
All right, Fritz, what do you got?
Does.
Ray Charles, 50 years in music. That
was a tribute special that we did in Pasadena. I remember Gladys Knight was on. I remember Gladys watching Ray Charles work, sitting watching with Gladys Knight in the wings.
Wow.
He was singing Just for a Thrill, and she was singing along in the wings, not on mic, just for a thrill. And she was just kind of rolling with it, and just kind of looked at me and said, a look that said, nobody like this, nobody like him. It was just a great moment. One artist acknowledging another, but it was, and I can't remember who else was on it. Isn't that funny? Because I remember that moment. But it was one of those big omnibus shows. I think it was for Fox. At the time, Fox had a lot of black sitcoms, and so their demo at the time was much heavier black than it is now, but. That just shifted with time, but so I forget who was on it. But we had a great time doing it, and Ray was hilarious. And what I remember about Ray is that he had a very shady manager. Speaking of like Artie Rip, a very shady manager who would always call and say, "You sent over the airline tickets, but we can't find them."
Oh,
and what was they going to say? Ray knows where they are. Ray can't find them. So this was a trick, This was a trick he would do, and that was how he would he would issue more airline tickets. I mean, it was.
Oh my God!
It was like so. And then what could you say to the guy? But I mean, I remember that.
I was talking to one of the trumpet player on the Tonight Show band, and he said Ray Charles was the most difficult visiting musician he ever had to work with because. He was so his pitch and his ability to recognize faulty notes was so extreme that he would have 16, 20 players on the stage, and if the clarinet player was off by an eighth note, he knew it. He'd stop the production and yell at the guy and sometimes fine him. Wow. He was so finely tuned to music. And
I completely agree, and I think he's like he had a lot of pickup musicians, and they weren't attuned to him, so that happened a lot.
Yeah.
All right, we have. Well, this is featured in your documentary footage from this. Happy Birthday, Elizabeth: A Celebration of Life, 1997.
That was an AIDS benefit it was for her AIDS foundation, which was a clearinghouse for other AIDS foundations. And she was turning 65, and so I forget who sold it. Gary Pudney, I think, was running specials at ABC, and I think he was big in the AIDS community fundraising, and so I think he sold it. And she. A couple of weeks before the show, we were going to do the show live at the Pantages, and the audience was buying tickets, and that was all of which was going to the foundation. She had a brain tumor, and she had surgery, and I think, if I'm not mistaken, they'd shaved her head, and she came back with the hair she had. She dyed platinum blonde.
Okay.
So she kind of looked like a rocker. It was pretty great. I think that happened right before, because it was touch and go if she was going to be able to be there. And since everything was geared to playing to her,
She started Amphar, right? Or she was one of the people.
She didn't start, but she became the godmother of the thing. She may have started it. I mean,
and I heard a very funny lady. People that know her say she was. She was very funny.
She was bawdy and funny and all of that stuff. Yeah, I mean, she was, and she loved. We made a lot of fun of her, which she thought was hysterical. Roseanne came out as Cleopatra.
Oh my
on
God.
The thing, and.
I think you had Whoopi issuing her first.
Oh, well, that was, yes. We shot Whoopi saying, I'm going to give you something nobody else will give you, your first Social Security check.
Hilarious.
Huge.
That's funny.
She loved all that. It was great fun. And there's a scene in the movie in Get Bruce where I'm, because we shot some backstage stuff there, where I am the unlikely couple of Steven Seagal and Selma Hayek.
That was other world.
They were presenting something or saying something, and they said, okay, if we shoot this work session, they said, sure. And so Stephen began swearing every other word because he thought it was for television, and they would never be able to use it. And Selma was just, And then they finished, and they said, you got enough? Oh, yes, absolutely. And then, of course, it went into the movie.
Yeah.
And he was stunned and amazed to discover that he was in the movie.
All right, one more. Funny You Don't Look 200, A Constitutional Vaudeville, 1987.
Wow. Well, that was Richard Dreyfuss's idea. Because it was the anniversary of the Constitution. Richard, who is passionate about politics and is a Democrat, wanted to do a show that they could show in schools. ABC would finance it, and then it would go out to schools to teach them what the Constitution was. And it was through a series of sketches that we did it. And I was in it, and Whoopi was in it, and that's actually where I got to spend a lot of time with her for the first time, and that start a lifelong relationship. I just did a secret show with her. You'll see on the fall. I can't disclose.
A tease.
Yes.
Yay.
But she was on it, and I remember she and Rhea Perlman played scullery wenches at the convention because that's what we needed, women, and we had to say that there were women there, but we were pointing out that these are what the women there were allowed to do to show you how things have changed. Thank you.
Certainly not vote.
Constitution, no, and I remember, and Emilio Estevez was on it, and I forget who else, but I remember shooting it. Absolutely, it was it was a big, expensive production. It was really great, and
I just love the title.
And ABC aired it. ABC did things like that. When Pudney was there, we did an AIDS special with a lot of people just talking about it. Nobody had ever done anything like that. The guy who produced it, Joe Lovett, just passed. And it was wonderful. Anita Baker came singing Fairy Tale, and a whole lot of big names. Although I have to look at the roster, and then I could tell you. But
Yeah.
Before we go, would you give us the gift of telling the story about Beethoven the dog on the Oscars? Oh, my God.
Well, I've written all these Oscar shows, and one of the hardest things to do is to the category Best Original Song, because nobody big stars sing songs in movies. They don't want to sing them on the Oscars because they don't remember them. Basically, they recorded them hoping they would win an Oscar, for writing them, but they don't want to actually get up and sing it. They keep saying, "Oh, call Celine; she'll do it." And she did. She did. And Natalie Cole was another one who would cover a lot of people. She was on many Oscar shows. Melissa Manchester covering many Oscar shows. So, but this one particular year, there was a movie called Beethoven's Fifth. And Beethoven, if you have children, you know the Beethoven movies. Beethoven was a big Saint Bernard, and he had at least five movies. This was the fifth. And in this one, he fell in love with a female who was named Misty Beethoven, which was also the name of a porno star in the 70s. So I thought it was particularly prophetic. A dog then and a dog now. And it was, and they had a love theme. I mean, it was one of those songs that over the what Roger Ebert called the semi-obligatory lyrical montage, which was always in slow motion, and there would be lovers on the beach. Well, the dogs are on the beach. The dogs are eating spaghetti together, and then the doghouse door closes.
Ooh.
So, and
does a train go through a tunnel?
Yeah, and the song, and there was a song to this, and it was nominated for Best Original Song. And we thought it would be fun to have the Beethoven and Misty Beethoven on stage with the singer-songwriter who had written the song, and that was Dolly Parton.
Okay, here we go.
So as I say, all four of them were there. Beethoven, Misty Beethoven, and both of Dolly Parton.
Yeah.
And she was wearing a diaphanous white gown.
Ooh.
And it's a very treacly song. She likes treacly songs. She says, Nanny went in a coal mine, and we lost little baby on the bridge.
Oh, no.
And she's right. She keeps saying to me, it's country music. Nothing good can happen. So she wrote this. She was writing this song, and then it was hit done by a Mack truck, and she's singing this song, and at this point, Beethoven thinks this would be an opportune moment to take a ferocious dump, and so he rises to his haunches and fires off, and of course. Mrs. Futterman, the network censor, is in the booth, and so they kind of cut to a shot of Dolly, a head to waist shot of Dolly, and the lights are very bright, and you can see through the diaphanous dress. You can see nipples of Venus. I mean, it's like she was made for high def. I mean, it's like pools, and so Mrs. Fetterman runs and says, "Get off of her tits!" So of course they go to a close shot of her, and she's singing the song, and she's playing, and now the fumes from Beethoven have kind of wafting up and in her eyes, and now the mascara is running. They're stinging her eyes, and they're just huge driblets of mascara coming down her face, and people at home are thinking, "Wow, she's really into the song." And in the audience, there are people kind of watching a guy in a tuxedo slithering on stage with a broom, sweeping poop off of the stage, speaking dogs off the stage. And I say I'm in the wings with Deborah Carr. Deborah Carr, venerated actress, nominated 7 times, never won. And they're giving her an honorary award, which we always call the kiss of death, because that's why Doris Day wouldn't get one. She said, "No, you get that, you die." And so Deborah Carr came in, and she had 2 guys helping her across the stage, and I'm with her, and I'm going, "Oh, Miss Carr was so thrilled." Because when the number ends, that part of the stage will sink down, and a screen will appear with her clips, and then the screen will rise, and she will veer. So we're in the dark. We're bringing her across the stage, and she can hear her. She's doing this, and she's looking at me. And she's saying, "What was in this venue yesterday? The circus?" And I'm saying, "Oh, Miss Carr, it's so glamorous. I'm so glad you're careful. There's a turd here. You just want to step over it." And so I thought to myself, here I am when I was a kid in Paterson, New Jersey, watching this show on TV. I thought, this is so glamorous. I can't imagine. And here I am, and I thought, it's exactly as glamorous as I thought it would be. And so I share it with people now.
Well, if Fritz gets a story, I get a story.
Okay.
I would like the Milton Berle story.
Oh, my God. Well, Milton Berle's famous for having a huge schlong. I mean, he would tell you himself.
So he claims.
He claimed. I have no idea. But he was a guest on the Brady Bunch Variety Hour. And we all wanted it. We had no female writers on that show, I'm sorry to say. So I didn't do the hiring, but we sat, and he went off to go to the men's room, and we all followed him, and now we're all crowding into the men's room, and he's looking around, going, "Well, get out!" And so everybody leaves but me. I walk over next to me. He said, "What do you want?" He said, "I thought you were queer." I said, "I am. I just want to see something Marilyn Monroe saw." Because he always told the story about how he had an affair with Marilyn Monroe. Why not? She had lots of affairs with lots of famous guys. And so he laughed and he said, "Get out of here before I tell your mother." As it happens, my mother played cards with his wife in Jersey before she was married to Milton Berle. Ruth Berle was in Paterson. She's from Paterson.
Your mother probably
So I
knows.
thought he really could call my mother.
You got to read this book. It's the laughter medicine you need right now. It seemed like a bad idea at the time. The worst TV shows in history and other things I wrote, all of them, even the shows that didn't work, were hysterical. Thank you so much, Bruce.
What else do we need to know,
great.
Bruce?
What
Where
do you
can
got
people
going on?
find you online? What's coming up?
Yeah, I'm on Facebook, but wegotbruce.com is where you can go and find out what I'm doing. It's a fan site run by somebody who I go every morning to check out, see what I'm doing. He knows more than I do.
It's very thorough.
I know. He's cracking. I'm gonna have to crack the whip, make sure he's up to date.
You said you have some. Is this? Are you allowed to tell us at all what the flavor?
No,
of the...
It's a thing with Whoopi. It'll probably be on in prime time when The View comes back. It's a very strange kind of special.
Oh, good.
All right, we'll look forward to it.
But I've written a play, and it's part of some of it's in the book. It's in which I get to play Alan Carr, who was the
I love your stories about Alan.
the producer of the first Oscar show I wrote in 1989. Very flamboyant character.
And the Grease, he did Grease.
He produced Grease and La Cage aux Folles are his big.
And Platinum?
hits. He didn't produce Platinum. That was he was not involved.
Was
in
that the
it.
disco movie?
The disco movie.
No, Can't Stop the Music.
Can't Stop the Music. I'm sorry, but only in a Bruce Vilanch film would you couple Ethel Merman and Alice Cooper. Didn't you have both of those characters on the show?
No, that was in Platinum. We had. It was about a big 40s musical star who's doing a disco album of her original hits.
And she did a
Ethel
disco
Merman came
album.
to see the show and
was
then did a
inspired.
disco album of her.
She was
of
so
her songs,
inspired.
which are hysterical. There's no business like so behind boom 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 boom. It's hilarious.
The best.
It's
All right.
just hilarious.
Well, we want to thank our wonderful and glorious guest, Bruce Vilanch.
Thank
Our
you.
team
What a
includes
treat.
producer Dina Friedman, John Maddox, Bill Filipiak, Mason Brown, Raf Rusak, Jordan Reyes, Haley Freight, and you. Our theme music is by me and John Maddox. I am Louise Palenker here with Fritz Coleman and Bruce Vilanch. Be well and wise. Take good care of one another, and we will see you along the media path.
Oh man, that was about as entertaining as an hour can be. Bruce, thank you.
Thanks. All right.
We'll just get a picture taken with you, and then I'll
I
have
have
you
to
go-
sign the book.